I miss you. Since you died, I have been fighting to live, fighting racism, fighting the survivor's guilt and grief that's persisted since racism killed you, my best friend and college roommate. I've been fighting in all the ways I know how, Heather, and I am tired. I am on this stage today because your death, 14 years ago, in your second semester of law school, it motivated me to leave my own anti-Black workplace. I have been so grateful to have you as my ancestor. So sis, guide me now as I share our truths with this audience. I need them to know how to go from where I was when you died, quote unquote woke, yet unsure how to do anything meaningful about the racism I knew was happening to us both, to where I am now, working systemically so more of our folks can not only survive academia, but navigate it successfully as their authentic selves. I'm afraid that if more folks don't start fighting for Black survival and wellness, that don't survive or ever get well. And even though I miss you so much, there's still too much work left for me to do here. After Heather died, I left my miserable insurance job and moved to Southeast DC to start working at Potomac Job Corps Center. It's a residential center that houses about 450 students, all between the ages of 16 and 25, mostly Black and brown, lots of queer and trans folks. I loved it. I was hired as an administrative assistant, but within a couple months, I became the work-based learning coordinator, responsible for career coaching and helping these students to secure internships, jobs, and other opportunities as they finished their training in our program. I loved getting to know these students, hearing their stories. Dominique, Caleb, Paul. These students taught me so much about race and power. Now, don't get me wrong, I knew about race and racism. My parents had taught me Black history and to have pride in my culture. So much so that I just had to go to Howard, the historically Black university where I met Heather during undergrad. Y'all couldn't tell me I wasn't Denise leaving the Huxtable household for Hillman to live my Black college dreams. So even though I didn't yet know that Charlene Carruthers, the author of Unapologetic, defines anti-Black racism as the system of beliefs and practices that destroy, erode, and dictate the humanity of Black people, but I knew anti-Blackness too well. One of my earliest memories, I was 6 years old and at a friend's sleepover, the only non-white person there, and her mom is helping us decide who would go first in a game that we were going to play. And her grown self says to our room full of 6-year-olds, "Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catcha N-word by the toe." And if that word is too violent for me to say on this TED stage, I hope you will imagine what it was like for me in my pajamas at a slumber party as a child. I will never forget that moment. So yeah, I was woke to anti-Blackness, but I wasn't able to work to do anything about it. It wasn't until I saw these diverse Black and brown young folks on their job search, students who were hungry for work, who met all the qualifications of the jobs we were going up for, who were doing every last one of the tedious tasks asked of them to get hired, yet I watched them be denied job after job after job in a systematic fashion due to their race, sexuality, gender. The darker their skin or the more visibly queer or transgender their presentation, the harder it was for me to place them on the job. That's what it took for me to wake up. Because like a lot of us who struggle with our own hardships, trauma, discrimination, I struggle to see my privilege. For example, that insurance job that I hated, but had the freedom to quit, yeah, I secured that at a campus job fair, because that's where these corporations come to recruit for jobs, pulling from pools of mostly white, middle to upper class students, students who have the privilege to go to college and the safety to make it to graduation. The ease of getting the job, for me, had made it so I hadn't really thought about what it was like for folks who don't have access to university, or who weren't cisgender, or didn't have the light skin or class privilege that I had. So yeah, Della, you fat, you black, you queer. You got to code switch every time you enter these white spaces if you want to be successful there. But you have benefited from privilege too. Like your parents both being the first in their family to get a college degree. And the access to opportunities that has provided you, like entry-level jobs that lead to middle-class possibilities. Jobs and possibilities that your black trans sisters are worthy of, yet are systematically excluded from. See, I hadn't yet read the Combahee River Collective Statement or Kimberly Crenshaw's foundational work on the concept of intersectionality, so I didn't understand power. Not until I took the time to really learn about these students' realities. And I noticed that no matter whether they came from New York, New Jersey, Baltimore, any of the areas that fed into our center, the education, healthcare, justice systems there had failed them. The teachers, doctors, police officers, family members around them could not keep them safe, or were the harm doers themselves. I had to learn how I had been a harm doer myself. Eventually, I decided to go to grad school to study counseling and how to conduct research that facilitates safety and wellness for those who have less access to it. And while I was on that journey, the Black Lives Matter movement started. I saw people creating Black futures with their words. Black Lives Matter. Yes, they do. Say her name. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Thank you, Assata Shakur. I saw people using their awareness, talents, positionality to shift conversations, cultures, behaviors. So I thought maybe one of the ways I could contribute would be by studying how folks moved from woke to working for Black survival and wellness. I interviewed incredible Black activists, and with a dope team of co-researchers, we created the critical consciousness of anti-Black racism model. Spoiler alert, y'all, we're currently in the model. You've already learned step 1, bear witness. That's what I did from that haunting eeny, meeny, miny, mo moment at the sleepover to my time at Job Corps. Bearing witness is about recognizing anti-Black racism at all the different levels and ways that it shows up, from internalized anti-Black racism to institutionalized. You gotta notice it. You have to locate yourself in relation to it. No matter your race, no matter whether you only ever interact with Black folks and are Black, or whether you barely ever interact with Black people in real life. If every one of these impactful Black activists and I all had to go through this process and we identify as Black, then you can imagine how challenging, though critically important it is for those of you who identify as white or as non-Black people of color. And look, no matter what your race is, there's a practice that I sometimes teach in my counseling and trainings that can be helpful. I call it cultural mindfulness. So I want to invite you to go inward for a moment. You might even close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you. And I just want you to think about what has been coming up since you started listening to this talk. What types of thoughts have been popping up? What emotional reactions have you been having? You notice any physical sensations at all? What are you mindful of? Pay attention to how your cultural identities and experiences might be influencing the way you can think or feel about these stories and this research. Get real curious, being honest yet gentle as you do. And whatever you notice, just decide how you want to be as a result of what you notice. That's the practice. Now, step 2 of the model, it requires processing the anti-Blackness you witness. It's the difference between folks who know racism is real and those who do something about it. For me, it was the difference between just being able to sort of provide some emotional support to Heather when she would call me in tears about the anti-Black racism happening in her law program, to now being able to combat that in ways that have the potential to help more than just one person or for just one moment in time. There is no cookie cutter checklist for the stage of the model, though. You have to bear witness, practice cultural mindfulness, and then do your own reflection. But I need you to know that you staying in the first stage, bearing witness, being woke to the anti-Blackness around and inside you, that does nothing for me and my folks. but you working through this stage to process it, to grow, so that you can dismantle that anti-Blackness around and inside you, though, that is how we all get free. Now, Black people, at this stage in the journey, we have to find ways to heal and acknowledge the pain and trauma of racism. But there are so many spaces that are here for our healing if we can open ourselves to receive the offering. And I know that this can be the hardest part for some of us, if we can work through the challenges that come with finding the right healer, with going through healing, with being a part of a liberation-focused community. But baby, it is so worth it. It's so, so worth it. And for non-Black people of color, for white folks, you're also gonna have to practice self-care and rely on community as you start to get real about your impact on Black futures. We all have to do the work, so we all have to take care of ourselves. So find you a self-compassion or Black Lives Matter meditation, join an emotional emancipation circle, or get a liberation-focused coach or counselor or whatever is right for you. Learn about Miriam Kaba and Adrienne Marie Brown's work on transformative justice so that you can be better equipped to start the lifelong practice of taking accountability for your impact on Black futurity. And step 3, it's so simple, y'all. Get to work. Get to work. If you need help identifying your activism lane, your strengths or points of intervention, please check out the blueprint that these activists gave us. Anti-Black racism is so pervasive, though, that I am confident that you can find an entry point that's right for where and who you are right now. So in these last few minutes, I want to talk about how you do the work. Move with love as you do this work. This model makes it clear that you need to center the needs and voices of Black people as you do this work. You need to move urgently in response to anti-Black racism. You need to follow Black leadership. Always be attuned to how power is operating around you. Be resourceful, creative, and look, just know that this work is gonna be hard, long, sometimes risky, often undervalued, definitely underfunded, but Black people are worthy of wellness. And I know that some of you can help with that. I know that some of you have the talent to create art that might help more people to see the beauty in Blackness. I know that some of you may be able to have the organizing skills that'll finally help us to get the police out of our babies' schools. And I know that some of you have the resources and networks that can raise funds to support culturally relevant, emotional, and social support initiatives specifically by and for Black people. And that we all can push in the places where we have influence and hold perpetrators of anti-Black violence accountable, no matter who they are. We need to make sure that our Heathers graduate and that our trans siblings have their needs met. That's the work. Will you work so that I don't have to worry about whether my nieces will be safe at your parties? Will you work so I don't have to worry about whether Black students will be safe in classrooms that you are in? Will you work so that no one has to experience the traumatizing realities that Heather faced? I still wonder and dream about what her life would have looked like as the entertainment lawyer that she has set out to become. I don't know that. What I do know is the pain that she was holding when she died. The soul murder that had been taking place. That feeling is familiar to Black folks. But organizers like LaTosha Brown, who co-founded Black Voters Matter and has been fighting against voter suppression, they give me radical hope in these revolting times. At an inauguration event this year, LaTosha said, "I am a Black futurist, I am a visionary, and I am a founder of a new nation. That's who I am." And since hearing that statement and resonating with it so deeply, I've been asking folks if they're willing to be a founder. They may not see themselves as founders of a new nation. You don't have to and can't be LaTosha Brown, but can you be the founder of a new culture wherever you are? One that works to actively dismantle anti-Black racism in all its forms and to facilitate thriving Black futures? Can you be the founder of a new office culture, department, family, church, classroom culture Change is happening, and you can be a part of it. We are moving past woke. We are working for Black survival and wellness. Will you get information so you can do the work with us? I hope they do right by our stories, Heather. I love you, sis.